Are you ready to join me in transforming fear to freedom? That's the objective of the show. Are you ready to explore with me and my guests? Are you ready to get into the deep and play? This is where it's at, and that's what it's all about. No medical advice here. Use discernment and decide for yourself if the information is right for you. All views and opinions expressed on this show belong to the individual and are not necessarily shared with the producer of the show. Want more details? Go to letsgetrealchattingwithcatherine.com. Now let's get real and have some fun. Who are we going to explore with today? Come on with me and let's get into the deep.
All right, and we are back with Let's Get Real, chatting with Catherine and my guest, Rose Sangregorio. This was such an intense conversation that we started in part 1, and I separated it for you because it's a lot of information. The first part of the chat, we mostly talked about the energy coming up. It's March 2015. We've got the equinox, we've got eclipses, the sun and the moon, and all those influences, and Rose gave us some real good insight into what's happening and how we can empower ourselves. Also talked about Rose's book and some of the things that are in it that can assist. This part of the conversation, we really got into more about past lives and parallel realities, as I asked Rose about it in the first part. So it just sort of continued a little bit from the first part, and then we got into the conversation. This is a really interesting concept to really get our heads around. So, you know, take your time, relax, but I find it intriguing. And if you want to work with Rose, you want to go to her seminars, get her CDs and whatever, go to her website. The link is right on the video. Or you can go to lgrcc.com, go to the guest link, and you'll find Rose's name, and previous shows that she's done with me are all on the current show listing or archive shows, or you can scroll through the YouTube channel as well. This is so much fun. Don't forget to like us and subscribe to the channel so that you get all the videos when they come straight away, because I'm uploading all the time. This has been such an exciting chat, and I hope you enjoy it too. All right, let's get into this right now with Rose Sangregorio from the Metaphysical Center of Canada Corporation on Let's Get Real, chatting with Catherine.
Okay, so if we took light, let's put it this way. If I took light and put it through a prism, what happens to the light? It's no longer just, quote, light that's clear.
Right.
The light refracts into literally the 12 rays.
Right.
So this happens with Creator. The thought of Creator or Spirit, whatever, says, I want to extend myself to find out what's happening in all these other dimensions. There is a law, and this is something I can't prove it other than I just know this is what is. I've had it shown to me in many things in our world. There is a law that from the 1, there are 12 rays. The 12 make the 13th, which then is the next layer. So we're going to go down. So we've got God, Spirit. It refracts through the dimension, through the prism, and it becomes 12 rays. And we have a layer. We put little pods there. And each layer has 12 rays. And this goes on through creation. So then we come to my higher self, which is an extension of the monad. Those are the words I use, okay? Different teachings use different words.
Right.
My monad has 12 extensions, okay? Of those 12, we call them 12 higher selves. Those 12 higher selves extend into 12 soul extensions. I, Rose, am a soul extension of my higher self, but my higher self actually has 12. I'm one of 12. I know, it's a little mind-boggling. And
yeah, and so not to interrupt too much here, but I just wanted to let people know, because if you know, this might seem like a little bit much. All of this is in Rose's book with the charts and explaining how this works. So this is kind of important for people to know that if they're not getting this full thing, I mean, you probably are getting it at some level, whether you know it or not, but if you want more,
and you want to explain it, understand it more deeply, get the book. Plus, Rose, as you said, you do workshops on this kind of explanation. But just for the, so at least people will know, yes, this is possible.
Yeah. And, my book is also available as an ebook. So that makes it easier to download. And
for Kindle and stuff like that? Or just on Kindle, or just as an ebook through your website?
An ebook through our website,
okay.
Yes.
Cool.
And all our events you can sign up on the website now.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me continue.
Yes.
And so now that's given everybody a bit of a reprieve to sort of soak in what I just said, because this is big information.
Yeah.
So here I am, Rose. I have a soul extension of my higher self. My higher self has 12. I'm one of the 12. But if I go higher, my I am presence actually has 12 higher selves who also have 12. Okay, so just don't even go there. It's like, that's mind-boggling. But I, Rose, become aware all of a sudden that, wow, there's more. It's not like I'm awakened. That's what you were saying at the beginning. I become aware that, my life is not what I'd like it to be. And I'm just realizing this is not what happened to me, but I'm using this as an example.
Yes.
I'm realizing I've just had relationship number 4, and it's always the same thing. Always the same thing. So I'm realizing, realization, and I'm aware, and I'm conscious of the fact that maybe the common denominator here is Rose. Maybe it's not them, it's me. And so this is where the beginning of our ascension path begins. And I talk about all this in greater detail in my book. So Rose, the soul, decides, for example, go to a therapist and find out, where do I need to change so that I can create a relationship that's loving and harmonious? And maybe that's not enough. Maybe I decide to do some past life regressions, and I have all these past lives that I've become aware of, and what happened to me and blah, blah, blah. But in doing all of that, if my desire and my choice is, remember it's about choice, to connect my divine energy from my heart up to my source, which at this point is my higher self, could be, you can call it God if you want. To do that, every time I clear what has blocked me or stopped me from that clear connection, those thoughts, those feelings, those emotions, the fears, the beliefs, the habits that don't serve me anymore, as I clear that path, I also start to access the higher self-awareness. My higher self is aware of my 11 other extensions that could be existing in China, could be existing on Mars, could be existing in Australia, playing different roles, because the higher self is like the CEO who has all their department heads who then report to the CEO saying, this is what's happening here, and the other one says this is what's happening here. So those higher selves are constantly in communication. Those soul extensions are in constant communication to the higher self. If I can access my conscious self to my higher self, I am now able to become aware of the other 11 extensions. So now we come into the alternate reality. Here's Rose. I've connected to my higher self, and I have a soul extension that lived at the same time as Rose conscious self lived, but I found myself, I was in Egypt, but now I'm realizing at the same time I was also in China. And so there's your alternate, there's your parallel reality.
And these are both aspects of you, but
they're aspects of my higher self.
Ah, okay. So what happens to you, your higher self extension in these other places? Does it have an effect on this?
Always.
It does.
Yes. As I clear my path to my higher self and become more consciously present with the higher self-awareness, I also, through the work I do, help the extensions of my higher self.
But each one of those other aspects of you, do they have their own ego, their own personality, their own...
Yes.
So,
if they live on Earth.
Or some of them aren't on Earth, so... Okay, so that's other realities for sure. But if they did live on Earth and you were to meet them...
It doesn't happen.
Oh.
At least not now. Not now. Maybe in the future, but I doubt it.
Huh? That's interesting.
Yeah, that doesn't happen. And I know people say, oh no, I've met my... No, that doesn't happen. It's just something of the universal laws. It's something to do with the energy fields. They can't come together. They repel. Mm-hmm. And so no matter how much I would try, say for example, I knew that I have an extension. Again, I'll use China just because I've been using that as an example. And I try to go to China to meet that extension. There will be an energetic repelling that one way or another we won't meet.
Okay.
But if I die or they die, then we can become one. In other words, I, as the higher self, absorb back to me the awareness of the extensions.
Okay, okay, just to kind of get a little more clarity here. So there's 11 plus you. So 12 aspects of your higher self that are all living at the same time, all existing at the same time, however you want to call it. So when you have a past life, is that another period where there's other aspects of this? Are these the same 12 living in different dimensions, or are we getting too out there?
Well, if I do a past life regression and I have not consciously connected to my higher self, then that past life regression belongs to Rose, the soul extension. When I consciously open to my higher self, I start to receive the higher self's awareness, which is of the other extensions. Now, I know this information, but someone else might not. So they go for a past life regression, and they've already done enough work to connect to their higher self, and they start witnessing through their higher self awareness a past life of one of the extensions. And that past life happens to be on Earth at the same time as Rose herself was on Earth. And so it creates confusion because people think, well, I thought I was in Egypt and I was, I don't know, a slave in Egypt during this period. And now I'm having a past life regression, or somebody's telling me about a past life and it's in China and it's the same period of time. They're wrong. Well, that's not necessarily true that they're wrong. It could be because you've connected to your higher self on a more conscious level, you are able to access that information. So let's put it in an easier way. We have the CEO of a company, okay? And they have 12 executives that represent 12 different departments. So each executive goes out and does their thing in their own departments. They're independent of each other. Those executives never talk to each other. They never see each other. They report to the CEO one at a time. So the CEO has all the information, but each executive does not. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Now, all of a sudden, one executive says, well, wait a minute. Why don't we have a meeting and let's bring everybody together? And so we have a meeting with the CEO, higher self, and the 12 executives. And so that person who had that piece of inspiration now is able to access the information of all the others at the same time.
And what about...
What happens?
And what about the healing work, or the other 11 having experiences? Would their, I'm going to call it negative for lack of a better word, but things that happen in their lives, do those things then affect you? Or does it just, are they separate in that way? Like you say, they don't talk to each other. They don't. So I'm just wondering if there's any value to when you're doing your healing work, you're connecting to your higher self. So are you healing all these other aspects of you, or is that up to them to do? And if yes or no, does it affect you? You, the conscious.
Okay. So let's go back to the executive, because that's easier for people to visualize.
Yes.
So the 12 executives are in their own departments, and they're having issues with their departments, okay? And to help themselves, to do the healing on that department, they go to the CEO and say, what do I do? The CEO says, well, maybe try this, try that. So that's what we call healing of ourselves, right?
Okay.
Now, the thing is, the one executive, executive number one, okay, has their department with their issues. Some departments are easier to deal with than others. We have other departments, but they all report to the CEO. So if one department is really having a tough time, it might affect how the CEO directs the others. Correct?
Yes.
Now, if we have an executive meeting where all of them are present, because I choose to consciously connect to my higher self, and through my higher self I connect to my extensions, all the work I do on myself affects them, because the CEO now can help strengthen the light that the others get, or strengthen the information the others get on how to run their... It's like, oh, executive number one figured out that if you do this, it's much easier for you to keep your people in harmony. So all the others get that benefit. But we do also have that person who's the star executive becomes literally the one who does the work for everybody else. So what I do for myself as a healing for myself does affect my extensions. And what the others do affects me. Good, bad, and ugly. So as long as I'm in my little pod by myself in my own department, then the effects are not as much. But when I connect into my CEO, my higher self, that CEO is the direct link to God energy. That's really what it is. Your higher self is your direct link to the spiritual world of the divine. Mm-hmm. That energy helps you be strong in your light, so you have the power and the strength and the ability to shift the other executives, to shift the other energies of the other alternate realities. So sometimes when you ask the question, does it ever end? Well, it ends for Rose as an extension in herself. But as soon as I connect to my higher self, I now have a whole 11 others to help, just as they help me. And then that kind of goes back up the other way.
And is that a true number, 11 or like 12? Is it really 12?
Discovered. This is what the masters taught me way back when. Okay. And since then, I've had, if you will, proof that this exists in our reality and in creation. And it's according to basically the way I read it, the way I've been shown.
Yeah. Well, this is what we're doing, the world according to Rose. I mean, that's what we're trying to explore what you know, so that other people can go, interesting to explore, and
This is really mind-boggling, but it actually is very easy to understand once you understand the basic principles.
Sure.
And it sounds awful. Oh, wow, we're never going to end. Well, it's actually the best thing, because the more I evolve and my awareness gets larger, that in other words, as my higher self moves through me, in me, I have a bigger awareness of this creation than I did as Rose by herself. Yeah. And when I start to move with my I am presence, it's even bigger yet. So the beauty of it is literally self-realization, or self-enlightenment, or ascension, whatever words you choose to use. The ability to be aware at all times the harmonics of creation, so that when something's not in harmony, I, through this huge energy field, I can actually alter that.
And affect other aspects of yourself, which may or may not be on the planet at this time. And I think it's exciting because it reveals more so the importance of doing the work that we're doing to expand and to create better possibilities, more understanding, and so forth. But I'm still, and I'm asking this because for clarity for me, for the people watching, I'm still a little bit confused about. I get my higher self and then these 12 aspects, which I am one of. But what I'm still curious about is, and I get that each one of these could be, one could be on Mars, one could be in China, one could be, these are different aspects, and this would kind of give us this sense of parallel or alternate realities. But how, one I'm kind of wondering is when does our awareness of alternate realities, which is kind of what I think people are talking about, is seeing that they're having influence. Now, to me, you've mentioned influence is when each one of these is reporting to the CEO back down to us. That's influence. That's influencing our reality. But I'm feeling like what they're talking about a little bit is where you actually step out of, you, Rose, or me, Catherine, out of my reality into a parallel reality, like a different timeline, a different existing at the same time, which is, it could be past, it could be future, it could be right now. It looks the same as this, but it's not. Like, I've had people tell me stories about things that have happened to them where they've been going somewhere and then everything looks the same, but yet it's actually different. And then they step out of that. So that's kind of, and I'm wondering if what you've already explained somehow ties into that, or if this is something different.
Gosh, I know what you're talking about. It could be two things. One of two things. One of them is, as I've connected to my higher self, maybe I don't even realize I've done that. Through my higher self, I'm able to be in one of my other, to be in another extension. But that's totally different. But every moment of every day, we have infinite possibilities through the choices we make. Infinite. So, for some people, because of the way the energies are right now, some people have trained in this stuff in past lives, and so it's awakening within them. It's like it's coming to the surface, this ability they've trained in past lives, in how to go into the place that we go to when we make decisions. But all the potential, like I can go in and I can see all the different possibilities in this moment right now into what I do next. And someone who has been trained in this is able to literally flip into this other place and choose a different reality in that moment and know what the different choices would be. So an adept, a person who's very good at this, would be able to consciously choose, okay, I'm going to go in and see if I choose this path, this is what happens. If I choose this path, this is what happens. So it's still the same reality I'm in right now, but at the same time, I also am able to see what the different choices would be. Someone who's very adept is able to do that, make a decision, come back and choose the action that is going to serve the greater good of all. And sometimes the service to the greater good of all is literally that. It's to bring harmony to creation. So yes, I can flip into Rose sitting here talking to Catherine in a totally different reality, if you will. That's exactly parallel to this, but it's one of the other choices where maybe I'm choosing to talk about something different at this point instead of what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Or maybe we're arguing rather than flowing the conversation, or maybe, right? They're different.
It's infinite. It's infinite. It's like when we go into that place, literally, it is infinite. the choices we have.
Okay, now, but you were talking about people who are adept at doing these things, but what about the person who's having, because one person mentioned to me seeing what he felt were beings from another reality, or people who, it seemed like they just slip into it, to a parallel reality where there was a woman who was going to an appointment, and she went to the appointment, and she got to the house where she knew the appointment was. She'd been there many, many times, and there was nobody there. And it was in the evening, and there was nobody there. No cars on the street, no nothing, and it was like a meeting. And so she waited and waited and waited, and it was really weird because there was just nobody there. So she drove back home, got home, and got a phone call from the person. Where are you? We're waiting for you. So there was a meeting, and there were people there, and she was supposed to go, and she went to the right house. It was everything was the same, but there wasn't anybody there.
So the thing is, it's like, because of the energies we're in right now and the powerful energies we are receiving, it's bringing forward into our lives the gifts we carry, whether we've worked on them or not. Because in a past life, maybe she trained she would have had to be able to do that. She's being trained in past life how to flip into different realities. Here she is now. The energies are there. They're affecting her. Remember, we talked about that earlier. You're going to be affected whether you're aware of it or not.
Right.
So she's being opened to these potentials of who she really is, this ability. But she has to still learn in this reality, in this lifetime, in this timeline, how to master that ability to flip in and out of these places.
Okay.
So these gifts that are latent, it's like someone... say like me, I can channel. Well, someone might just out of the blue start channeling.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean they're adept at it. They can be channeling, but they don't know how to open their channel properly. They don't know how to bring through only beings of light. And so they've got the training to channel. It's being brought up to the surface for them to utilize this ability, but they still have to train to be a master of it.
And what about like this guy it was kind of different, but he was basically saying he'd seen beings. So is he seeing beings from, would that be like other dimensions coming into this dimension, or would that be parallel? I mean, I know it's hard. I don't have a lot of information, but...
It could be many things. It could be beings that have come to him and are around him. And it could be him who has transported into another reality to access these beings. It's unique to the individual, and in a general sense, I would say more than likely he has trained in past lives in being able to connect to other dimensions of reality with other beings, and so he probably just flips into that and doesn't realize, like, he has to learn how to do it with conscious intention.
Yeah, because that's something we've been hearing about for a long time, where people seeing things and whatever, and they don't try to cultivate it as a gift. They feel like maybe it scares them, or maybe they think they're being haunted, or they're being whatever. And now we're starting to understand that, well, there is no time except for here on planet Earth, so it could be you from the future. I mean, you're hearing about people doing quantum leaps into the future and finding themselves living a different reality and having a different outcome and getting that knowledge and coming back and consciously. I mean, there's just, it's an amazing time to be alive. I'm very excited to.
Well, and these 2 weeks coming up, right, are all about accessing our highest potential at this moment in time, and being able to find what is in the way that's stopping us from accessing that. So these people who have these gifts, they're gifts, but they've also got to find where do they have blockages that's not allowing them the mastery. Because it's one thing to channel, it's another to be the master of it. Mm-hmm. It's one to be able to travel interdimensionally, it's another to be the master of it.
Yeah, you don't want something else. You don't want something being done without your, you want to be in control of it. You want it to be a gift that you're using, and, you know, like somebody taking my hand and just playing the piano here while we're talking. I mean, I want to be able to know when I'm going to use that gift and how and so forth. So we have this just kind of recap here. We have this 2-week window, which is an opportunity, a gift,
yes,
to look at our stuff. And would you say, like, the best way is to kind of look at what's being triggered, what our triggers are, stuff that's coming up, and that's where you have lots of tools to help people to clear into. Forgiveness is huge. I don't think you can ever go wrong with that.
But, you know, the thing is sometimes it's not just forgiveness. Sometimes it's about recognizing that your trigger maybe has to do with a judgment, but the true energy under the judgment has to do with a fear of maybe being different. Because you're different, then people will ostracize you, and because they ostracize you, you feel isolated, and so you judge others before they can do that to you. Mm-hmm. And so it's not just about forgiveness, it's about recognizing the intricacies of what exactly are the thoughts, the feelings, the emotions, the habits, beliefs, and behaviors. I mean, that's 6 layers, 6 different aspects that create the whole. Mm-hmm. And to be able to find those triggers and be aware, you know, we are here to learn how to master our ego. And we need to have an ego to be human. But the
ego gets a bad rap, but the key is what you're saying is to learn to master it. It's like every other gift, it's like taking care of our body, taking care of our thoughts, being conscious of not just being on robot thing. And here's something that I just want to finish up with, which is a bit of a different topic, but it just came to me to ask you. I've heard, you know how people are talking about, they're really pushing for disclosure from the governments to say that there's other beings, ETs and whatever, have landed and so forth. And just one part of this that I'd heard recently that's really, really important, and I do think we talked about it before, but is that we as a human species are sovereign. We're meant to be sovereign. This is our planet. We're meant to be here to claim it, to be in relationship with it. And that sometimes what people are doing, this is the part I want you to kind of speak to, is we are so, because we've been denied the information for so long, people are calling in the aliens to help us, sort of thing, and we're not doing it with discernment to make sure that what we're calling in to work with us, that we're inviting in, are from the angelic realm or from the highest and best, so that we're not just like a bunch of dopes saying, reminds me of a school, teenagers putting on the internet, they're having a party and 3 million people show up at their parents' house and trash it. That's how I kind of feel about this whole disclosure thing. We need to be discerning, and that we have the power to do that. That there's people been visiting us, but we want to make sure who we're inviting in is from the highest and the best. Do you get that sense that that's our job? Is that?
It is. It's literally because as a spiritual being, we know better. As a spiritual being, in our human form, with our thoughts, feelings, our ego, we are run by, at times, fear. And it's that fear that separates us from the true awareness of who we are as a divine being. So, I'm going to say it's very important, because especially these 2 weeks coming up, because all that we put out is going to be amplified tenfold. Therefore, if I put out negativity, it will be amplified tenfold. I put out my fears, they will be amplified tenfold. I put out my neutrality, it will be amplified tenfold. I put out my love of all creation, it will be amplified tenfold. Therefore, the energy is neutral. We talked about that. When I ask for anything, this is something, one of the step number 1 that the masters and beings of light taught me when they started to work with me, is always use discernment with preference. So this replaces judgment.
Yeah.
I discern, and then I prefer. A discernment shows me the potentials, right? The different choices. And then I can then prefer which one I choose. So when I'm calling or invoking anything, I always ask that it be 100% aligned to the will of God, or whatever your source name is.
Yes.
100% aligned to the light. In service, 100% in service to the greater good of all creation. When you say those things, anything that would be attracted to you that is not in service to the greater whole of the light and 100% aligned to the light and to the source of all that is, that energy cannot come around you. And so what happens is, if I stay in, not from fear, because if you put it out from fear, you create more fear.
Yeah.
But if I come to my neutral place with divine love inside of me and I say, okay, and I do this all the time when I do my work, I call in all beings of light in all creation that are 100% aligned to the will of God, 100% aligned to the light, and 100% in service to the greater good of all creation. And I just stay open for whoever comes. Mm-hmm. I have never, ever had an issue or a problem.
Yeah.
But this was my number one teaching. And again, it's in my book.
But I wanted to just get that out there because there is this sort of a call right now, and people are, they blanket it disclosure. Well, yeah, disclosure to me is about empowerment, revealing to us what's already happened. But to open ourselves up, as when we really think about it, this planet, we are meant to be here as human beings, free, thriving, not enslaved, not used, not blah blah blah. So, and I'm no vibration on that. I'm just saying that's not how our intention. So for people watching, be curious and be open and inviting, but make sure who you're inviting to your party.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I totally agree. And I have worked with many people, especially younger people, that have called in energies that are not always in service to the greater good of all.
Yeah.
And so it's really important. We are the masters of our creations. We live in a free will zone. Therefore, if I freely call in whoever wants to come, I'll violet flame that because I do not want to do that. If I call in that way, then I create my reality, and it's what I've chosen through my free will choice to create.
Yeah, and it's giving your own power away. It's
exactly,
and that's, they're meant, when you're calling in, you're calling in people. Like, I really like that idea of, it's like a party. I don't invite people to the party who are going to take over the party or be in charge of it No, I invite you to join me and bring your gifts and share and help me on my path, but not to run my path. And that's where people, I think we sometimes we get off track. But I just wanted to get your point on that. Is there anything else you really want to share, excuse me, before we conclude? Because I know we've really gone into some interesting areas, and
I really want to say to people, don't be scared. I know that some of the things we've talked about are pretty complicated and deep. I don't want people to be scared and think, oh my God, this is way outside of my realm, or I'm not aware enough, or I'm not ascended enough. Don't think that. If you're listening to this, then your higher self called you to listen for whatever reason, and whatever information you receive is what you needed to receive. I do not teach to make people feel small or lesser than. I teach to help people really, truly access the true knowledge of who they are. And so I just want to say, it's just, take what you can, listen to it over and over. I know when I teach, when the masters come through and the beings of light come through, I know it's multi-coded. Therefore, you can listen to this 600 times, and every time you listen, you're going to hear something new and different, because they will let you hear what you need to hear to serve your greater good.
Yes. And you can go back and listen to the previous recordings of our chats. We've had numerous chats about different things if you want to learn more and you want to explore. And also several of those shows had influence from the elementals, which were also coded energies, healing energies to help us. But I just want to say, I have never, I've been doing work and chats with Rose for a long time, and I've never ever had the opinion that anything you were saying was to do anything other than empower people and to share information. So, you always are, we can't learn if you don't speak to us from what you know. If, just for example, I had a conversation, a very brief one. I was on social media and somebody made a comment about death, and I said, why don't we stop calling it that? Why don't we start thinking, why don't we just say we're just dropping our body and moving on? Or why don't we just, I forget way I said it. And this woman wrote, because there aren't many people who would ever understand what you're talking about. And I thought, well, there's a reason not to talk. The idea, to me, that was so arrogant. It was an insinuation that she understood what I meant, but nobody else would. And I thought, why? So we don't talk about stuff if you don't understand? No, that is how we learn, is by talking about it. So I appreciate you not holding back, not trying to, you trust your guides that whatever you're sharing is going to be received by the audience. And I trust the questions I'm asking are going to be what everybody needs. So I think it's perfect. It's always perfect. So
thank you. Yeah, I do want to talk about what's coming up because
yes, please.
We are in Calgary until the middle of April, and I have over the next few months a few events happening here. And you can always go to the website there. It's a new website. If you have any problems at all, please email us so that we know you're having problems, because we just launched it a month ago. But I'm going to be teaching a workshop called Transformational Healing. It is one of the techniques the masters taught me way back on how to access information about myself or about others. And it's always to serve the greater good of all. It's not for manipulation. And you get information about past life, present life, future life. You can find when people are not in harmony within themselves, what are the blockages. You can help shift those blockages with them. You get insights and information. It's a really good class.
Is the class for for me to take just for my life, or was it also be for practitioners, like people that do Reiki and do other healing modalities?
Both. The workshop itself, the work that's done on the person, is a lot, because to be able to be a clear vehicle, to be able to access those levels of creation, you have to get cleared. And so there's a lot of work that's done on the individual, but it's good for people for themselves. It's good for people who are practitioners. It's good for people to just come that weekend and get a good cleanup and never do it again. And so we have all of that. And there will be a healing night on the Thursday night before that. I will be teaching a Reiki Level 1 class. I'm very, very close to Hawaii Takata's lineage. So my teaching, the way I teach my class, is very close to the way she used to teach it. I teach a Reiki 1, Reiki 2, and there's a Reiki Level 3 on March 28th. 3 and Master, I do both together.
And all these are on your website?
My website. And the last one I do want to talk about is the retreat. I'm doing an Elementals, Nature Spirit opening. Yeah. I do teachings pretty much every day, but I do major teaching at the beginning of the retreat. It's 5 days, and it's at a beautiful place just outside of Calgary, just outside of Cochrane at Ghost River. And if you're interested, please email us. It is about, you can look on the website, it is about learning how to become more in tune to the beings all around us. So specifically the nature spirits, the elemental beings, the divas, the animal kingdom. And it's been very, very well received. I've taught it a few times in Denmark. I've taught it here last year. So that is available. There's not many spaces left. So if people are interested, you do need to email us to sign up right away.
And when is that?
That'll be June 27 to July 1. So it incorporates the July 1st holiday so that people don't have to take so many days off.
Right.
And then we're doing a pilgrimage to Burma in October. And if anyone feels the call to find out, again, go to the website and you can always contact us to get more information. So thank you.
Very cool. Very cool. Oh, it's so, that's what I just love about it, is to let people know you're not alone. There's tools available. And Rose is really approachable, and you have such a gentle way of teaching, and so I don't think people need to be intimidated. Yes, Rose does have this knowledge, and it is maybe beyond what the rest of us maybe consciously know. But the beauty is you're willing to share it, and you do it in a way that's you never talk down to anybody, Rose. I've never heard you do that. So it's.
Well, in classes, I channel the classes, and even though I have a brief outline of what I'm teaching, what I teach is based on the group that's there. So if there's someone there that really needs me to speak a little differently, it will come out differently. Yeah. So definitely. But thank you, Catherine, for this lovely time. As always, it's been a pleasure.
It has, and it always is. And I really want to encourage everybody who's watching to go back and review some of the old shows. Like Rose says, the energy is still within them, and they're still archived up on the website. Either go to current shows or archive shows, and you'll find, and then you can just search Rose's name, and they're all up on YouTube, or many of them are on YouTube as well. And then go to her website. I'm going to put the link right on the video so people can know how to get there and get information on all the courses. And so I just really appreciate this. Take care of yourselves, people, and be good, be gentle. It's 2 weeks of opportunity, and this can be really...
Be neutral.
Be neutral, that's right. So thanks so much, everyone. Until next time, take care.
Bye-bye.
Amazing. Thank you to my guests for sharing with us today. Thank you for watching. Feel free to share the link. You can join us for live shows by going to letsgetrealchattingwithcatherine.com and listen to the replays from the show page, preview guests, and explore links to our Facebook fan page, WordPress blog, and more. We are creating an exquisite world. Until next time, take care.